Welcome, everyone, to the first podcast at TGIF on Hall of Fame Friday. Congratulations, Smarty Jones. A couple Pennsylvania breds are people awfully close to Pennsylvania in our lifetime. Scott, nice to see Smarty Jones getting into the Hall of Fame. 2004 was his year, and 21 years later, finally getting the plaque.
Yeah, I'll never forget where I was because I was at work at a restaurant and the whole restaurant stopped to watch a horse race. Smarty Jones not getting the job done, but it was a memorable moment. Great to see him get the nod. Nice day of racing today at Saratoga, but tomorrow, a monster card. I am calling it, no one else get offended, the second best card of the year so far.
Wow. I mean, you look, at least since the Belmont Stakes, we haven't had anything like this in racing. It's one of the absolute days of summer that you can't wait to see. Whitney Day, and we've got a rematch with the last two Breeders' Cup Classic winners in there. A 1-2 rematch of last year's Breeders' Cup Classic. Going to be a lot of fun talking about that one. Of course, it's Hambletonian Day, Saturday at the Meadowlands. At the end of this podcast, we'll get a chance for our harness expert with First and Express Bet, Al Cimaglia, to check in with his thoughts on the Hambletonians' leading contenders. Kentucky Downs Preview Day at Ellis Park this weekend, and West Virginia Derby Day at Mountaineer on Sunday. So a lot going on around the country, not only at the biggest levels, but at some of the regional levels as well. We'll get a chance to talk about some of those races. For the folks listening on our traditional audio podcast, here is a list of the 8 races Scott and I will handicap over the next half hour or so. At Saratoga, we'll start things off with 2-year-olds in the Saratoga Special and 2 big timers going in that one. The 4-star day for the turfers and the milers. We got the Saratoga Derby for the 3-year-old turf horses. The Test Stakes, one of 4 grade 1s on the card at Saratoga. That'll be next up. And then we'll finish things with the main event, the Whitney, a real showdown in the Breeders' Cup Classic division. To Del Mar, we go on Saturday, where the Clement Hirsch will have Breeders' Cup Distaff hopefuls in action in that one. And to Ellis Park, where it is preview day for Kentucky Downs, the Nashville Derby preview and the Mint Millions Turf preview will be our 2 stakes races that we handicap from Ellis Park. If you're playing races this weekend with First Bet and Express Bet and you want to play Saratoga, take a look at Saturday's $5,000 hit and split promotion. There's an extra $2,500 added to winning tickets, split up amongst just those who hit the late pick 4 and the late pick 5 on Saturday at Saratoga. So be sure to opt into the promo, play with First Bet and Express Bet, and not only your pari-mutuel winnings for the late pick 4 and pick 5 on Whitney Day, but again, you'll share $2,500 with just other players on the platforms who take down the late pick 4 and then in the late pick 5 as well. So a lot of great promos this weekend, handicapping tournaments as well. Fun in the Sun week number 3 coming up. Interesting, we saw Robert Rosen last week win the Fun in the Sun week 2, a weekly handicapping tournament, and qualify for the final table. He won the original final table in this handicapping tournament back in 2020, so he's got a chance to become the first 2-time winner of Fun in the Sun. The final table, of course, coming up on Labor Day. Each Saturday, you can play Fun in the Sun. It's a $100 handicapping tournament where you make $10 win bets, so all the money goes in pari-mutuel. $25 entry fee to play. That's also paid back 100% in prize money. So play weekly. Try to qualify for that final table each Saturday. It's the final 5 races at Saratoga and the first 5 races at Del Mar if you want to get handicapping ahead. Let's talk Saratoga and Del Mar, Scott, and we'll start things off with the Saratoga Special in race number 3. That won't be part of Fun in the Sun early in the card, but some of our stakes later will be. Let's go to race number 3. It's the Saratoga Special on the path of the Hopeful Stakes. 6.5 furlongs here. 7 will be the distance for the Hopeful. And 2 of the most impressive Saratoga 2-year-olds we've seen this year, Ewing and Obliteration, are in what looks to be a showdown, now just with a field of 4.
Yeah, scratched down to 4. Unfortunately, Dazzle Dioro had a catastrophic injury, according to trainer Tom Amos. So sorry to hear about the news. Very impressive winner there at Churchill. And then Comport for Eddie Keneally will worked out, I believe, this morning or very recently, and is going to run it and Ellis in the juvenile instead. So, like you said, down to a field of 4. You got Ewing, who beat Tartable on debut. A couple big last names there for sports fans like us of older ages. And then you got Obliteration, who you
call older.
Obliteration, who surprised everyone, it seemed, on debut at Churchill, going off at 10-1 and winning. Didn't surprise anyone last time, winning by 10 lengths. To me, like you said, a 2-horse race. I went with Obliteration, but not much to sink your teeth into as a gambler.
Steve Asmussen has Obliteration. You've got Mark Casse with Ewing, two guys who know how to win big races with 2-year-olds. We've already got a win in the column in the Sanford Stakes for Obliteration. Let's take the fans back to see that stakes win during the Belmont Stakes Festival.
In second, 4 clear of Imagine John there at the top of the stretch. And Obliteration and Flavien Prat waving off the brief bid from Blinging It Back. It's all Obliteration. Perfectly named individual is romping home in the Sanford. 7 lengths past the 16th pole. Obliteration is a star. He wins by 9 lengths. Blinging It Back, Imagine John, and Strategic Risk.
That was during the 4th of July festival, not the Belmont Stakes Festival. So many festivals at Saratoga to keep track of. Ewing won his debut by 12. Obliteration won that one by 10.5. Something's got to give when the two of them match up. Good luck to Thunder Chuck and Camelgal, who are also in that race, trying to match up with those two. Scott's going to give the edge to Obliteration. We'll see you in the showdown. Flavien Prat on that one. Irad Ortiz rides Ewing for Mark Casse. Let's move now to the 8th race. It's the 4-star Dave on the card Saturday at Saratoga. Named for the great turf horse who won a race at Saratoga, I believe 5 or 6 consecutive summers. He was famous for swigging the Guinness for Leo O'Brien. Who's going to get a beer after this one, Scott? Who gets to celebrate with the victory? Turf Milers here for $750,000.
This is one of the best races of the day without question. And in fact, a division that I'm usually not overly excited to work, to discuss, handicap, watch. Really intriguing race to me.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a sprinter in My Boy Prince that'll keep the pace honest. You've got Think Big, who a lot of us thought was a sprinter until he overcame losing his momentum last out and still beat a couple of his rivals in here. And then the centerpiece to the race, Johannes, who hasn't raced since mild bone bruising, put him to the sidelines at the end of last year after the San Gabriel. But to me, I think Johannes is likely to run his race. I know people are concerned off the layoff. Tim Yakteen, 12 for 61 off a 100 plus 80 plus day layoff, 285 ROI though over the last 5 years. And this horse has already come back off a long layoff from the American turf to the American and run one of his best races to date. I can't see them shipping him out here if he's not going to run his race. But as a gambling game, I'm going to go to Think Big in here, Jeremy. Don't think Kelso was nearly this field, but he handled that field in his first try, going 2 turns on the turf. Handled them without the best trip. Intellect had a much better trip, I thought, in that race. So hopefully we can get 6-1 on Think Big.
Time, win for the money, angles to the outside, and in between those two is Intellect with a furlong left to go. Intellect has wrested the lead away from Arzak. Think Big between horses, Extreme Outside, Neat, and Mountain Bear. They're coming toward the wire. It is Intellect, and here's Think Big. Think Big. Think Big stretches out and shows that tough stretch kick to win the Kelso from Intellect. And in behind.
He'll get a new rider, this time Think Big, to be ridden by Luis Saez. Jose Ortiz, his former rider in there, will be the rider changes he takes them out on My Boy Prince. There was some talk about when horses committed to the race and others who came in later in the go. My Boy Prince, not one of those choices, I think, for Jose Ortiz that he makes if everything is equal. It's one of those situations where one horse was committed prior before the other one decided that they wanted to go in. But by getting Luis Saez, you're certainly not getting any knock there. What a good race the 4-star Dave is, because we've talked probably 4 or 5 minutes on it. We haven't mentioned the Manhattan and the Turf Classic winner and Pegasus winner, Spirit of St. Louis, or the Manhattan winner, Deterministic. You've got some really good horses cutting back. They're not necessarily milers, but this is a $750,000 race on the turf at Saratoga. If you don't want to go to the 3 turns and the big 1.5 miles and the Sword Dancer, this is kind of getting some of those intermediate type horses as well, with Deterministic and Spirit of St. Louis showing up in here. This is really a cool crossroads race.
Without question. Deterministic, a tough read. Miguel Clement pulling all the right strings, of course, of late for his father who passed away. This horse has been on the lead, so he's a tough read. But if you go back a little bit, because he's not going to be on the lead most likely going a mile with a sprinter in My Boy Prince. But he's in great form, and he has shown the ability to stalk just off. Spirit of St. Louis, total toss last time in the Manhattan. I don't know. He looks like he probably wants more distance based on the way Chad Brown's managed him this year, but he's 3 for 4 at the distance as well. If he's 6-1 or higher, I mean, you got to give him a look as well. I do prefer him to Intellect, who is a little bit lower on David Aragona's morning line.
And one of the longer prices in the race will be last year's Woodbine Mile winner, and here, Win for the Money. I mean, like, you take all the good turf races in North America and, like, who have won them in the last 12 months, you've got 60% of them in this race probably. I mean, this is a really good-looking field. Can't wait to see it. The 4-Star Dave, one of the more exciting races of summer. The Arlington Million's not what it used to be, but the 4-Star Dave might be a beneficiary of some of that. Let's go to the Saratoga Derby Invitational. That's race number 9 on the card. As you would expect, it's for 3-year-olds. Another $750,000 race in here. 1 mile and 3/16 the distance, a 2-turn race at Saratoga on the turf. We've got some international interest in here for sure. We've got horses coming from Germany in the 2, Jewelier, Hot as Hell coming from Great Britain, Tiberius Thunder also running from the UK. You've got some horses coming in from overseas, but not necessarily for the barns we're used to seeing. This isn't just Charlie Appleby. I mean, this is Alessandra Balti, Jessica Harrington, and Adrian Murray bringing horses in to this race. So not your typical group of international shippers. Makes for, again, another very interesting handicapping challenge.
It sure does. And I really, I don't have a lot of success when I've done this in the past, rolling with a horse that I don't know all that much about other than, watching the races in hindsight and, reading up on what it was supposed to be in the horses and talking to a couple people that know more. But this horse, Hot as Hell, looks like just a class above this field. Now, Test Score to me is a horse I'm very fond of. What I was a little discouraging was Graham, this horse. Main thing to me was I think he's gonna. I thought he fit very, very well, but Graham Motion mentioned this really wasn't the original plan. So it kind of feels like the Belmont Derby was such a good effort. It's like, why not? That's not my favorite way to bet a 3-1, 7-2 shot.
Right.
But so to me, World Beater is a decent price in here if you're looking that way. But Hot as Hell has kept the company with the best of the best over there in Europe. Look, 25-1 last time in a 6-horse field. Stalked just off the pace in that race, a grade 1, the Coral Eclipse. But Delacroix won the race, one of the best over there in Europe. So I just think if this horse has anywhere near the class that I expect, he's going to be very tough to beat.
Yeah, he was 3rd in the Irish 2000 Guineas prior to that. And last year really took a big one in the Group 1 William Hill Futurity Trophy, beating the aforementioned Delacroix, who's turned out to be one of the better 3-year-olds over there this year. Let's go back to Hot as Hell in his premier performance as a 2-year-old.
Neighbours on the left being finessed into it. Anno Domini, Raw Blue. Buick still sitting quietly at the back of the field. Down inside the final 3 furlongs. Seaplane on the left is being joined by the strong travelling Delacroix. Now Moore shakes the reins at his mount, asks him for more. Hot as Hell between the two is battling on. Anno Domini now moving up into 4th from the rear. Has got 3 lengths to make up. Delacroix moves on with a furlong and a half to go. Hot as Hell, though, is sticking with him. Fighting hard. The 2 Irish train runners fighting out the finish at the moment. They're drawing clear. Hot as Hell on the near side of Delacroix. Delacroix just wandering off a true line, leaning into his rival. Hot as Hell. Delacroix coming back for more. A heads up, heads down finish to the
Regular Router Foley coming over to take the mount for Jessica Harrington. Hot as Hell, top choice in there for Scott in the Saratoga Derby. And talking Derby, we have 2 Kentucky Derby alumni in this race. Tistastic and Final Gambit, both 3-year-olds who had some experience on other surfaces prior to the Kentucky Derby, have now gone back to those surfaces. What do we make on the turf of Final Gambit, who adds blinkers for the first time, and Tistastic? Are they where they should be, and are they as good as maybe people thought in the spring?
Well, I think both of them were recipients of really good setups in the races that kind of propelled them forward got them into the Kentucky Derby is kind of the way, the truth of the matter. I think Final Gambit has some talent, but I think Brad Cox kind of told us what he thought of his chances on the dirt and where he stood up by not sending him to the Belmont Stakes and instead to the Matt Winn. Now he's adding blinkers. I think he'll be a little bit of an underlay. Tistastic to me is just, he's going to be a big price, but he just feels like a horse that's going to be up against it from a pace and class perspective.
Yeah, Tistastic probably getting ready for Kentucky Downs, prepping for a race there. Dueling Grounds Derby. The Winchills have ownership, obviously, in Tistastic and in Kentucky Downs itself. So we expect that's what he's tuning up towards. Let's go to the 10th race Saturday at the spots. The Grade 1 Test 3-year-old fillies here. And this race has long put the best in the division up against one another, the 3-year-old Sprint fillies. You've got one in here who hasn't been in the stakes ranks yet. Tell us about the Vacoma filly for Peter Urton, me and Molly McGee.
Yeah, this is a filly that has been very impressive and most importantly, very quick out of the gate and early in her races. Early, late at Keeneland in the spring meet, she got bet down the 5-2 favoritism in a 12-horse field for Peter Urton, who, he gets runners that take some money, but not necessarily a guy that has, took money against the best of the best in California with his firsters unless they were serious. And she ran really well that day. The one that beat her, Velvet Devil, already had 2 starts. It was a few lengths back to third. And then she's just used that speed to dominate pretty much the last couple of races. Particularly, she dominated May 17th, beating a filly named Spun Candy that came back and won her next start. And then in the next start after, she just kept getting bet late and really beat a solid first-level allowance field. So I think she's going to get out of the gate. I think at anything close to 8-1, I'm going to take my chances that she can beat them to the front and have enough late.
That's the Kentucky shipper there, me and Molly McGee. 3 of them in here coming from Southern California. Cash Call for Bob Baffert's won 3 in a row. Look Forward's been well-traveled, but leaves a Del Mar Bullet workout in her rearview mirror for Michael McCarthy. And then Artisma for Richie Baltus comes east, the horse who ran second to me and Molly McGee in allowance company at Churchill last time, but based out on the West Coast, also training at Del Mar this summer. So 3 West Coasters. You've got the Kentucky horse, but really this race is a rematch in terms of what we know locally of the Victory Ride Stakes, where the 1-2 finishers are back in there. Echo Sound and Beauty Reigns. Echo Sound for Rusty Arnold, Beauty Reigns for Bill Mott. Let's get a look at them at the Spa. This was during that 4th of July festival in the Victory Ride.
Past the quarter pole and turn for home in the Victory Ride. It's Echo Sound with a narrow advantage. Now opening up, set down for the final 1/8 of a mile, and Beauty Rain starts to gather momentum clearly into second. These are the 2, but Echo Sound full of run with a 16th to go. And it will be Echo Sound. Echo Sound, an authoritative winner of the Victory Ride. Beauty Reigns was second. Indy Bay finished third.
Oh, her at Pimlico in the Miss Preakness Stakes. She's won 5 of 6. Echo Sound, the leading local, coming off that 101 buyer last time out in the easy victory. But again, she's got the Kentucky shipper that Scott likes to challenge. She's got 3 from California. This is a good one. Kind of the theme of the day, these crossroad races, whether it's regional, whether it's distance, it's just not the same horses running back against each other in some of these divisions. It makes for very interesting handicap.
No, that's exactly why I love the card. It reminds me of the card that I would almost always call the best, Kentucky Derby card, just the way it is. People meaning trainers and owners and barns and horses coming from all over the country to try to win those races. This has that feel to it, and I'm really pumped for it.
All right, the 5th stakes race on the card Saturday at Saratoga is the Grade 1 Whitney. We saved the best for last. It's race number 11 on the card. It's our express bet race of the week. And as we mentioned earlier, this is a rematch of last year's Breeders' Cup Classic 1-2 finishers, where it was Sierra Leone over Fierceness. It's a rematch of the last 2 winners of the Whitney Stakes. And you get last year's winner in here, and then you get the winner from 2 years ago of last 2 winners of the Breeders' Cup Classic, I should say, White Abarrio from 2023 and Sierra Leone from 2024. White Abarrio has won this race in the past, though. It's the 2023 winner. And can he get back to that kind of form? I'm going to let you see his race from 2023 because it's been so long ago. And then Scott can kind of ponder the question over the next 30 seconds or so. Will we see this White Abarrio on Saturday?
And White Abarrio is the leader narrowly over Giant Game. Zandon, Cody's Wish on the outside, still 4 lengths behind White Abarrio, who's running the race of his life. Look at White Abarrio and Arad Ortiz Jr. in a runaway. White Abarrio wins by almost 6 lengths. Zandon second, Photo for third, Cody's Wish, and Charge It, Rick Dutrow Jr.
You can't say he didn't beat a good field in there when it included Cody's Wish, who was the big heavy favorite. Last year's winner, Arthur's Ride of the Whitney, as I misspoke a little bit earlier, and Arthur's Ride was back last week, and Allowance Company didn't come back with his same stuff here this year in 2025. But what do we make of White Barrio? Let's start talking about him before we get to the others.
Well, I think he has the upside to win this race, which as a win, if you're betting to win or approaching horizontal wagers, that's what you're looking for. I think there's only a few horses, and we'll talk about the top two contenders in terms of morning line and resume coming into the race after. But White Barrio, to me, is the horse that has shown it, as you mentioned there in the Whitney, showed it in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Now, that was a long time ago, but he's run some very fast races since then, including the Pegasus World Cup. You could easily point to that being a Gulfstream, but I think we know by now this horse can take his races out of town. And I just think the Met Mile last time is a line through. Not only he just never really kind of got comfortable in that race, but more importantly, it wasn't a true two-turn race. It was out of the Wilson chute. It was over and off track. I don't think any of those things benefited his chances. And I think they've been pointing to this race ever since, from what I've been told. So I think he's the bet in the race, assuming he sticks at, 4 or 5 to 1, because I do think he can win the race, 20, 25% of the time.
That 47-1 work July 15th, the work before last, and it's usually the second to last work is the one where they're really trying to be sharpest, and then a maintenance work into a race. That kind of indicates I think he's trending up to a big race too. White Barrio will be ridden by Irad Ortiz, a 4-time winner of the Whitney. He'll try to get his 5th. That would match Jerry Bailey and Pat Day for the all-time record. And also, if White Barrio is successful, will be just the 4th horse to win multiple editions of the Whitney. Commentator did it more recently. Back a ways, commentator a 2-time winner of this race. You go back a ways, Kelso won it 3 times. Discovery won it 3 times as well. You're in pretty good company. Commentator, Kelso, and Discovery, if White Barrio can get that multiple victory notch in his belt in the Whitney Stakes. But he's going to have to beat 2 really good ones to do so. The 1-2 finishers in last year's Breeders' Cup Classic. No question about it. When you've got Sierra Leone and Fierceness back in a race, we got to discuss their chances in here. Fierceness is the morning line favorite. I think the horse to beat in here because of the location. Saratoga. He's been absolutely, almost unbeatable here at Saratoga. Second in the Met Mile, that snapped the 3-for-3 record at Saratoga. When you talk about getting some distance under him here at the Spa, this horse has had Jim Dandy and Travers wins under, his ledger. I think he's the horse to beat because of the location. Johnny Velasquez rides Fierceness for Todd Pletcher. Both of those 4-time winners of the Whitney. They know the way to the winner's circle, and this horse certainly knows every inch of Saratoga.
Without question, he has a lot of things in his corner. I feel like kind of this is his grade 1 of the year, not to say he can't win another. The Met Mile last time, if he was Go Sapper or a horse of that caliber, he should have won that race. But same thing stands for him as it does for making the excuse for White Barrio. He ran a much better race than White Barrio, just wasn't good enough chasing Raging Torrent. I think he's the obvious one to beat. I think 9 to 5 would actually be a very fair price, which is the morning line. I don't expect to get that. You mentioned, all the things that make him tough. I'll mention the thing that's most important to me. In addition, the outside draw. I don't think this horse likes to be on the rail. If he's on the rail, it kind of forces Johnny V, his regular jockey's hand. When he's on the outside, I think it makes him very tough because he's not a need the lead type, but he can take it if you give it to him. He should be extremely tough in this spot.
He kind of needs things his way. We've always said that. And from the outside, you got a better chance of getting that than you do being down inside where others are kind of dictating a little bit what you have to do. Fierceness, 3-for-4 over the track at Saratoga. Everybody else in this race, 3-for-20. So there is definitely some home cook in there. One of the horses that has 3 losses over the track in 3 tries is Sierra Leone. He's run 2nd and 3rd in those 3 starts, 2 thirds and a 2nd. Amongst them, Flavian Pratt rides Sierra Leone. What do you make of his chances? He's 0-for-2 this year. The New Orleans Classic was a terrible effort. 3rd beaten 4 in a race where he was 30 cents on the dollar in just a 5-horse field. He was certainly better in the Stephen Foster when running 2nd to Mindframe, beating a length. Is he trending the right way for you?
Not really. I think he is what he is. I think he was never winning the race in the Stephen Foster. They could have run that round again. He ran a fine race, and his numbers are very solid. But The last time he won a race without a big setup, I know it was the Breeders' Cup Classic, but it was 1.25 miles with a major setup, was 2024 for the Bluegrass at Keeneland. So you could argue he had a good setup that day as well.
He did that day, yeah.
Yeah. So I just think he is what he is. And I mean, at 2-1, I don't want to open my windows publicly. We get fortunately get enough views that could ruin me. But but at 2-1, I think he's a tremendous underlay. And I could look stupid, but he's just an also ran in a lot of these races. I expect him to come again and make people think maybe the next time.
He's won for his last 7. That's just the fact, right? But he got the right one. You win the Breeders' Cup Classic, $6 million, and you end up with a $5.9 million season just bagging, a race or two. So Sierra Leone is obviously danced a lot of big dances, 3rd in the Kentucky Derby, or 2nd in the Kentucky Derby, 3rd in the Belmont, won the Breeders' Cup. I mean, he absolutely is in the discussion in any one of these races he shows up in. But again, if you want to take a horse one for his last 7, beating Fierceness over this track, knowing the freakish performance that White Barrio's had over this racetrack, you're going to have to assume that Fierceness and White Barrio both don't run their race, because if either one of them runs their race over the track at Saratoga, it probably beats this horse. If you're going to bank on both of those things to happen, like you mentioned, 2-1-ish, isn't going to pay the bills. I think you need like 4-1. If you got 4-1, 9-2, then Sierra Leone may be a gamble, but I don't think he's a gamble under 4-1.
No, I agree. It was almost 7-1 in the Breeders' Cup Classic. It was the race where, people started to overlook his chances on the win end. To be fair, he could get a big setup in here, but to me, it's about the price. Like you said, 4-1. He's got a better chance to win this race. I mean, I don't know if I think he has a better chance to win the race than White Barrio. I think he has a much, much, much better chance to hit the board, though.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to think he's not going to hit the board is probably, foolhardy in this race to Whitney. He's going to come with his race, and he's probably going to be within 2 lengths of the winner at the wire. But again, 1 for his last 7 is 1 for his last 7. That's just, you are what your record are. Isn't that Dennis Green or Sherman Edwards or Herm Edwards or one of those guys? You are who your record says you are.
Dennis Green was the Bears who were who they thought they were, and we let them off the hook.
Let's go now to from Saratoga to Del Mar on Saturday. The Clement Hirsch Stakes for the Breeders' Cup Distaff Division, 1 mile and a 16th trip here. Grade 1 company and a purse of $400,000. We got a field of 7 in here, including Copian, who was shocked last time out by Sweet Azteca in the Great Lady M. That was a little bit different of a race for Copian there at Los Alamitos, a different kind of racetrack, extremely long stretch run. Great Lady M Stakes was a race that we had seen Sweet Azteca in before, setting a track record. So she was kind of in her groove that day. But did it show a little chink in the armor for Copian after such a dominating performance on the Derby City Distaff on the undercard on Derby weekend? Or is it just a situation where she caught a horse for course in Sweet Azteca? What do you make of Copian? Because she kind of holds the key to this race.
Yeah, it might be Bill Parcells, by the way, and maybe not Herm Edwards. I don't know. Anyway, I didn't want to commit to Herm Edwards. I did want to commit to him. Sorry, I was listening to what you were saying, but I was very committed to make sure I didn't. Yeah, the Copian thing is a tough one, I mean, I wasn't going to hold against – well, I'm not holding against her, the Great Lady M. She chased a fast horse over a racetrack that often plays differently than other tracks. But you come into this race – and she's really got very little form, if any, proven that she should be what's the morning line on her? She's going to be a prohibitive favorite.
She's 5-2 in the morning line. Ricci is 3-1. Seismic Beauty is the morning line favorite at 2-1.
Okay. Well, if she's an honest price in the middle, 3-1, 7-2, I do think she's got a ton of talent, but I think she's got a lot of questions to be answered in here. And then you look to Ricci, who not a horse or not a mare that I thought I would like in here, because when I first looked at it, I thought, oh, there's a lot of pace. But when you look at the race, you mentioned Seismic Beauty, who I think has to go. She was very headstrong in the Santa Margarita. I'd be very willing, to let her beat me at 2-1. I mean, she's got a shot in here. But then you've got Nothing Like You, and Ricci's the third, the Baffert to the, third outside of the 3. They all have tactical speed. But what I found most interesting with Ricci, who I do think will try to sit just off the pace, is, I was concerned looking back at a career best buyer, career best whatever number, but I have the formulator information. 102 buyer came off that. I was wondering, wow, Bob Baffert horses coming off that, 60 to 100-day, 20-day layoffs after their big effort. That seems like maybe something went wrong. Maybe that's a career best. Not the case. 14 for 39, 301 ROI after a top buyer last out with that 60 to 120-day layoff. So I think we can expect I would expect one of her best efforts, if not another top from Ricci.
She's run exclusively in Chile and at Santa Anita. It'll be her first try over the track at Santa Anita. The last time we saw her, though, at the Great Race Place, she was pretty awesome on the front end. Here's Ricci.
Ricci striding smoothly on the front end. Opens it up to 2 on Splendora. Ultimate Authority fully extended in third. They're a quarter of a mile from home. It's been all Ricci with Splendora. The only threat just got a crack to try to get close to Ricci, who's full of run at the 8th pole. And Ricci has a 4-length lead. Splendora is trying her best, but no match for the classy Ricci, who makes every pole a winning one in emphatic fashion. Ricci dazzles home in the Santa Maria.
I'm going to agree with you on this one. Ricci's one of my favorite Bob Baffert horses, which is kind of like saying one of my favorite Notre Dame football players. But one of my favorite Bob Baffert runners, Ricci, and I think she's in a good spot here. And I think, like you said, being outside of some of the other speed in here could be a benefit for her. So we're both in on the Clement Hirsch with Ricci. Now, Ellis Park has preview day for Kentucky Downs meet and the big stakes at Kentucky Downs. So it's Kentucky Downs preview day Saturday and Sunday at Ellis Park. Let's take a look at the couple stakes races on the Saturday card that we'll look at. First up, the Nashville Derby preview, of course, for the 3-year-old colts, and then the Mid-Millions Turf Mile preview. We'll look at towards that big, million plus. I think the Mid-Millions race is worth like $1.5 million now, something like that. 250,000 in the prep.
Something absurd with these races, but lots of good turf races in prep for the Kentucky Downs meet. These races come up good every year. You mentioned, and there's an all-turf pick 3 that has a couple of in them. And then on Sunday, there's good races as well. And I'll actually have a blog up on Sunday morning discussing the Sunday stuff.
All right, so we'll get more from Scott on that on Sunday, but let's talk about these Saturday stakes then. This is the preview for the Nashville Derby, 1 1/8, race number 8 on the card Saturday at Ellis Park. Schedule post time 4:12 Eastern. Not a big name group in here when you talk about the 3-year-olds on the turf. Some of those are going, of course, at Saratoga in the Saratoga Derby Invitational. So you lose a little bit in this race because of that. It's a chance for maybe some horses that are bubbling up underneath in the allowance or maiden type ranks to get a stake shot. And I know you've got a price in here that you do like, drawn in the 2-hole Yinzer.
I do. I'm surprised there's not a tremendous back history for the Nashville Derby preview. But but yeah, Yinzer is the 2-horse. He's 10-1 on the line for Steve Asmussen. And this is a horse that's pretty simple. He's run 2 big races. Both of them are when he's been loose on the lead. One of them was a maiden special at Fairgrounds. Yes, it was a very favorable day that day for inside speed. He took advantage. Mm-hmm. And then at Ellis last time, he got an easy lead and the same thing happened. I think he's loose on the lead here, and he's proven to me that he can keep going on both surfaces. So at that price, I'm going to try Yinzer.
Pittsburgh folks will be all in on Yinzer here. It's kind of a colloquial term there in the Steel City. Let's see him stealing on the front end in Allowance Company last time on July 5th.
Yinzer still has the lead all to himself, better than a length. The Warden continues to stay close, likewise for Sing Sing. The Hidden Chambers under a drive making his move. And Some Performance is trying to gear up from the extreme outside. Some Performance swings into the lane with about 6 to find on Yinzer. Yinzer's the leader. Sing Sing has remained up close, likewise for the Warden. After them is the Hidden Chamber. And from the inside is Covert Law. Yinzer was able to go slow early, and Yinzer still has the lead, and it's Yinzer all to himself throughout. Yinzer, wire to wire in the nightcap.
Should be a fairly simple pace. I mean, there's not a lot of speed in here. You've got an inside draw. Just go and see how far you can take him. I think that's it. And you hope he looks like Paul Skeens, Yinzer, this weekend at Ellis Park. That's race number 8. Let's go to the 10th race. It's the Kentucky Downs preview of the Mid-Millions Turf Mile. $250,000 here. Turf Mile, of course. Taking Candy down on the rail for Cherie DeVoe, 4-1 in the morning line. the favorite Mercante in the 2-hole. So this race kind of runs right through the inside here. Mercante's won 3 of his last 4, neck or 3/4 of a length away from winning 4 straight. Which one of those 2 favorites down inside, Taking Candy or Mercante, do you have the best lean on?
I lean on Taking Candy, and I'll tell you why. The price should be a little bit better, but more so it's about race shape. I think the pace here is going to be contentious. You look at Mercante, he tries hard. He's been such a cool story. Look at this Brian Nippenberg, Carl Pollard runner. Somehow got in their hands from Bill Mott about 14 months after Bill Mott was training, and they really made this horse a competitive one. The thing about him is he doesn't really want the lead. He's had the chance to take the lead in both of his last couple, and he's, big races, and he hasn't really taken the opportunity. He's not going to have a chance for the lead in here, and if he doesn't want it, he's going to find himself several lengths off. So I think it might make him a little vulnerable. It'll also be very impressive if he can come from further off and show that same determination. I think Taking Candy, though, cutting back straight mile, exiting 3 graded stakes races off the layoff for Sharita Go, finds a very favorable spot here, both in terms of race shape and class. I think Brian Hernandez Jr. will just save ground early, kind of a further than mid-pack, but not way out of it, and be very tough to hold off.
Brad Cox has Encino in here, coming off a win in the Schuster Memorial at Horseshoe, Indianapolis. That was the first time on the turf for that one. Epic Ride also got on the turf for the first time at Churchill Downs in the Mighty Bow Stakes turf sprinting. We haven't seen Epic Ride go long since the Kentucky Derby. He was 3rd in the Bluegrass going 2 turns. Interesting to see John Innes stretch him out in this spot. Turf Mile might be a pretty good spot for Epic Ride. He's a horse who's got some talent. I'm curious about him in here. He gets no favors, though, stretching out from 1 turn to 2, being in the 10-hole. He might, that first turn is going to come up on him awfully fast, and I hope he doesn't blow the turn out there under Edgar Morales. But Epic Ride's interesting to me. What do you make of him in a turf mile?
I mean, there's reasons to like. I mean, you definitely look at his pedigree and think that it's fine. And in the Kentucky Derby, pressed him, and maybe, John Ennis, who's a very aggressive trainer, decided to say, whoa. And it looks like he hasn't tried since. I don't know. The thing that he has going against him, in my opinion, most is the probable race shape and the outside draw. If he doesn't break well, he's finished. And if he does, he's going to have to go very fast. But I'm intrigued to see how he performs.
Interesting group. Like we said, this is like the theme of the weekend. Like, you get these horses that aren't necessarily turf milers or regional matchups, distance matchups, class matchups, a lot of different shakes that we get in the different races this weekend. And they're not just like it, as often happens at a lot of racetracks. The stake circuit just kind of recycles itself, and you see a lot of the same horses against each other from the prep to the main race, and such throughout a stake series. But this weekend is really a lot of cool crossroads races. Looking forward to that. That's the Mint Millions Turf Mile preview. Taking Candy will be Scott's top choice in there. That's going to wrap up our handicapping for the weekend. Want to remind you, Sunday is West Virginia Derby Day at Mountaineer. Evening program, a twilight program there. We've got a 20% win boost on your win bets at Mountaineer, up to $20. So win boost, if you cash a ticket, say for $10, you get a 20% boost. That means you're going to get $12 back, an extra $2 on that 20% on a $10 winner, up to $20 for the day. So a nice rebate on some win bets there. Not necessarily a rebate, but a win boost for Mountaineer. Dustin Fabian's got some picks posted on the website. He'll be at Mountaineer on Sunday night, checking out the races there. So looking forward to a big night of racing at Mountaineer. Be sure to check that out. We've got the $5,000 hit and split at Saratoga. Again, $2,500 in Saturday's late pick 4, $2,500 in the late pick 5. Be sure to check that out. And then on Sunday, mandatory payout day on the Rainbow Six at Gulfstream Park. So they're up to about $85,000 in the carryover going into Friday. If they get a couple more days carryover, it'll be a 6-figure carryover for sure going into Sunday, and a mandatory payout at Gulfstream. Scott, I'll give you the final word here on the weekend, and then we'll hear from Al Cimaglia, who's going to handicap the Hambletonian for us here at the end of the podcast. But your final thoughts.
Hambo time, the big harness race of the year. Look forward to hearing Al's thoughts when we are through here. The Whitney card has me excited. The early maiden special weight races into the stakes, that's right up my alley. Like you said, good fields that aren't kind of those repetitive stakes. Should be an awesome day, awesome weekend to get involved at First Bet and Express Bet.
All right, take it away, Al.
The Meadowlands will be the setting on Saturday for the 100th edition of the Hambletonian Final with a purse of $1 million. This shapes up to be a very competitive race as 10 3-year-old trotters will look to etch their name in the record book as Hambletonian champion. Express Bet account holders need to register to take part in the Bet 150 Get $20 promo at the Big M. Here are the top 6 entries in the field based on morning line odds. The 2 Super Chapter. This is the Hambletonian favorite at morning line odds of 5-2 after winning its elimination race as a huge odds-on chalk. The Yonkers Trot winner is going after the second jewel of the Triple Crown and is unbeaten in 2025, going 5-0. Yannick Gingras picks up the drive from Marcus Meadowlander as Dexter Dunn chose the second program chalk, Maryland. Meadowlander has been second 3 times in the Hamble final and is looking for his first win. He sends 4 of his trainees out for this race. Gingras won last year's Hamble with Carl and has a very good opportunity of making it 2 straight. The 3, Emoticon Legacy 4-1, won its elimination with the measured performance as the big favorite with driver Louis Watt, trainer Luke Blas. This will be the first time for Watt to drive in a Hambletonian, and Conditioner Blas is looking for his second Hamble win after scoring with Forbidden Trade in 2019. It would be no surprise to see the son of Wallner in the winner's circle as it has captured 8 wins in 11 lifetime starts. The 4, Maryland, 3-1 in the morning line. This is another Marcus Meadowlander pupil and is also a prime player after finishing second in this elimination. After ending 2024 with 5 straight Grand Circuit wins, the son of Chapter 7 has no wins this year, but has finished second in all 4 races. The millionaire doesn't blush on a big stage. He won last year's Mohawk Million and the Breeders' Crown. The super talented driver Dexter Dunn is looking to book his first Hamble win on Saturday as he sits behind the field's leading money winner. The 5, Maximus Mieris S, 6-1. The son of Chapter 7 closed in 26 flat to come a hard-charging second to Super Chapter in its elimination. That was only the second start this year for the Lucas Wallin pupil. Scott Zeron will be back at the controls, and he is looking to capture his 4th Hambletonian final. His first victory came only 9 years ago on Marion Marauder in 2016. The last elimination winner is the 6, Nordic Catcher S, 9-2. This talented colt is owned, driven, and trained by Aki Svanstedt, and the son of Sixpack went gate to wire and hung on to pay $23.80 last week. This colt is on the improve, as Svanstedt will be looking for his 3rd Hamble win. Along with being a price shot winner last week, the colt has been very consistent, posting 4 wins and 4 second-place finishes, and has never missed a board in 9 lifetime starts. To round out the top 6 is the 10, Go Dog Go, 10-1 in the morning line. The Kartapinski trainee was the odds-on favorite last week and finished a close 3rd behind Maryland and Nordic Catcher. The son of Greenshoe started off the season winning 3 straight, and driver Todd McCarthy will be steering. McCarthy will be looking to snag his second Hamble win after doing so with Cool Papa Bell in 2022. Papa Bell went off at 52-1 and was the biggest long shot ever to win the Hamble. The Pinsky pupil won't be that kind of price, but could be overlooked with post 10 and offer a large payout. Saturday's 16-race car will be loaded with talent and stake races. That includes the $500,000 Hambletonian Oaks Final. I'll be back on ExpressBet.com on Saturday with Hambletonian Day analysis, and don't forget to register for the Meadowlands.